welcome everybody to our DigiLeaders talk today, which is all about humanising transformation. And the way this all came about was I was talking with Lisa, and Lisa and the team at Dorset Council have been working with us at Adapted Digital now, specifically on humanising transformation to accelerate success. Probably about, do you know, we were trying to work it out yesterday, Lisa. I think it's like 2018 is when we first connected, but I don't want to give away some of your story, because today is all about story and hopefully some dialogue at the end. But just to let those of you that are not aware of who I am, and then Lisa will obviously introduce herself and give apologies for Sarah as well. But my name's Mel Ross, and I am Chief Architect and founder of a company called Adapted Digital. And we are the home of the Dillon Way framework. And the Dillon Way framework is the human and social systems framework for transformation. So we basically work on the mindset side of transformation and change, helping organizations and practitioners and leaders shift their mindset, that stuff that's, you know, underneath the surface, that messy, intangible stuff. We bring framework and structure to that to help organisations humanise transformation and hopefully accelerate success, which is a great segue into introducing you, Lisa, and your story.
Thank you. I was saying to Mel yesterday, it's great to be closing the loop today, because 2 years ago I did a digital leaders session with some other people that work in change across Dorset, where we were talking about what we'd learned through all our years of working in change. And I made a statement during that session that you can have all the approaches and the frameworks to help, sort of in terms of agile and user-centered design, but ultimately it comes down to people to make change a success. And so it's really great then today to be then focusing on the human aspects of change. So thank you, Mel, for our double act today, which was going to be a triple act, but unfortunately poor Sarah's got COVID. So get well soon, Sarah, if you're still going to watch us, and hope you're better soon. So shall I say a little bit about me? So I don't know if you can see my lovely background. I grew up here, if anybody knows where that is, but it's Loweth Cove near Durdledore. Durdledore is quite a famous spot after the pandemic when everybody levitated there. But I joined the council as an apprentice back in 1992 on a cohort that was particularly focused on developing leaders for the future. I've worked in ICT for nearly 3 decades, but mainly my roles have been to act as that interface between the techies and the business. So my first sort of role was installing Windows PCs and teaching people how to use them, and I had to even train them how to use the mouse. You can't even imagine that now, can you? Show people how to use the mouse. And then I kind of moved into the sort of system application space, writing specifications, testing and implementing large system change, and through to today, where I lead the digital team at Dorset Council and delivering aspects of our digital vision to help us become a digital council in a digital place. So that is me.
Fantastic.
So my digital journey kind of started around 5 years ago, when the head of ICT at the time wanted to create a digital strategy and bring in user-centered design to help the organisation really respond to budget pressures. So instead of salami slicing, budgets and services, it wanted to be able to redesign them and start to think about how we could do things differently. And he asked me to help kind of make that happen. But I did make a conscious decision at that point. I didn't want that work to be all about technology, the technology function. And at that time, so many digital strategies were coming out, but they were just actually technology strategies still. It was all about the tech. So starting to think differently at that point. But we worked with FutureGov at the time, and we adopted the Design Council Double Diamond. If people aren't familiar with that, it's got 4 stages within it: discovery, define, develop and deliver. But basically it helps us to focus on people who use the services and think about the whole audience chain involved in delivering a service, and then using data to help make decisions, and builds in time to really generate ideas and explore different ways of doing things. So really good. And if you want to hear a bit more about that, I actually wrote a blog for DGS for Services Week this year about our user-centered design journey. And one of those key learnings that come out in the early days was for the need for the organisation's culture to be able to support UCD, and for people to be able to think differently and be open to it. So that sort of come out right back then. So because of that, we started doing a lot of digital awareness work. We used things like Learning at Work Week. We drew out sort of user stories across the organisation where people were doing things differently. We created our digital maturity curve, and we started to do digital maturity sessions with teams, sort of raising awareness with them. And all that was helping to create some energy and excitement in the organisation about, oh, is this possible? Could we do this? And it was around that time I met Penny Siddle, who was an early thinker and advocate of digital inclusion, and she recognised that there was no point in providing and investing in infrastructure across Dorset if we didn't help people develop the skills and awareness of the opportunities of being online. And she's done some amazing work creating their community champions network, issuing devices to people. She created a digital hotline during the pandemic. So fantastic work from Penny there. And we joined up, and we found a couple of other like-minded people as well that worked in the district council at the time. And we just started kind of trying some stuff and having a go to see what worked. And we didn't really ask permission. We just got on and did it. We created a podcast. I think we were one of the first councils to do so. And we created a digital network, which has now grown to involve not just council staff, but businesses, digital champions in the community, partners like the NHS. And one of our early networks, Rachel Neiman, came to Dorset to talk to us. And if you haven't heard Rachel speak, she is so inspiring. She's one of those people that everybody was talking about, you know, for weeks after. And after the session, she came over to me and she said, she mentioned this new program that she was working on to help organizations kind of develop those mindsets for the future. And I was super interested in that, but it wasn't the right time for us in Dorset, because we were right on the cusp of local government reorganisation and a new council was being created. So of course, you know, we didn't know where we would end, you know, where we would end up, and it just wasn't quite the right time. But you know, as anything, the new council presented an opportunity when it came to digital, not least because the chief executive was that was appointed was actually the Solace lead for digital at time, and he was involved in the local digital declaration, which we signed as we formed as a council. And so as a result of that, one of our values is around designing services around the needs of people. And the behaviours that we have 4 behaviours: responsibility, recognition, respect and collaboration. And they really help to enable digital work.
Yeah.
So we kept working to build our user-centred design capability, and a big shout out for James Simmons, who has really helped to make that happen, and our fab team of service and content designers. But I wanted to scale up some of the work we've been doing with our internal Office 365 champions. And so we engaged Tribe 365 and worked in partnership with them. And Delia Carr has been brilliant and key to making that a really effective partnership. And the champions, just seeing how they've changed, you know, just prepared to have a go and try stuff, helping other people develop their skills, you know, improving their own skills, but also feedback about how it's made a difference to their job satisfaction and how they feel about work. So it's really lovely and a real privilege to be able to see that. Obviously digital is a bit, it does, you know, you do have to cover the technology aspects so we started to explore digital platforms and a platform approach for the organisation and changing the way we do ICT. But one of the main objectives of that work is to improve customer experience. So still, it's all about people still. And then I attended a talk that Mel was doing about digital age leadership, which I was intrigued and wanted to learn more. So I signed myself up for the practitioner course and learned about the 7 mindsets in the approach. And it really fit with what we were doing, but it also made me realise we had a really big gap in terms of our leadership offer when it came to digital. And this had the potential to really help our work. So that's when Mel and I really met, wasn't it, Mel?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's lovely that you talk about that kind of full circle with Rachel, because obviously Rachel is one of our early adopters, and you know, that program that, you know, you were talking about, and it's great because Rachel has always been a huge advocate. She's one of our practitioners, a huge advocate of humanising transformation. And I think what I love about what you said there, Lisa, was that, you know, you were already courageous, you were already taking steps in the right direction, and organically recognizing that it's about people. and organically leaning into skills and engagement and conversation, human-centered design, and even as a result of that, behaviour. And I think one of the wonderful things when we started working with you was that moment of understanding that there's more. There's more than skill. There's more than behaviour. And if you think about an iceberg, you know, what's visible, you know, the tip of the iceberg, what's visible to us are the words and the actions and the how behaviour of those words and actions. But underneath, what's invisible is why we do things, and that's mindset, and that's ritual, and you know, those are and their beliefs, and that's really the kind of, you know, the piece in the pie that we came in to help you with, and I think that's really important, because mindset work and that invisible stuff, it's the messy bit of human transformation, isn't it? It's the messy bit of the people side of digital, because it is complex and because it is largely, you know, invisible, and I think that's, you know, hopefully what we brought to you and your team, and continue to bring to the leaders at Dorset, is a framework to be able to put structure to, you know, not doing things different, but being different in who we are. And I have to also give a big shout out, because, you know, not only are you one of our great practitioners, but also so is Penny as well. Penny Siddle is you know, is fantastic and brilliant in her work. So yeah, and also I think what's really important as well, which you know, two things for me that I think has been lovely about, you know, your story, and it'd be great for you to tell everybody a little bit more about it and explore this a little bit more, is that mindset, modern mindset, is not just about all of us being the same. It's not just about all of us conforming to, you know, the 5 values in the same way. It's about how do we encourage and foster uniqueness, because we are all, as human beings, unique. So we want to uncover that, but we want to unite to the values with our uniqueness of who we are. And that for us means that there is not just one mindset, there are 7 mindsets, which allows each and every one of us to explore our strengths as well as development areas across those 7 mindsets. And I think that's really important, you know, because that allows us to shift from doing to being. It's not what we do, it's who we are. And that really does need frame as well as uniqueness. So, you know, that to me has just been, it's been such an exciting journey, and I'm really pleased that it, you know, it continues. But, you know, in terms of the sort of, you know, the practitioner stuff, I know Sarah was going to be with us today to talk about that. So maybe I'll hand over to you in a moment on that. But I think one last thing for me, which I would shout out about Dorset and the work that you've done specific to leadership, is this. When Lisa and then Amanda, who was in heading up HR and learning and development for Digital Dorset at the time, when they came to us, they wanted something different, and they recognised that they wanted uniqueness, but they also wanted to stretch the leaders in the way that they thought, so that they could participate in the future and participate more in change and transformation. And what we encouraged them to do, madly perhaps at the time, was to be cross-functional about their idea of leadership development and non-hierarchical. And what that basically ended up being is a joint venture leadership program that was open to everybody. So it ended up being a joint venture between Dorset Council and the NHS and Health and Social Care Partnership, and bringing all of that together. So it was cross-functional and non-hierarchical, and I think that really gave us, you know, a magical moment on that particular leadership program. You know, I'd love you to talk a little bit more in terms of, you know, your thoughts and how you received that, because it was a little bit of a courageous move. It was a little bit of a moment of madness there, wasn't it?
It was. But, you know, but it's been fascinating for me seeing the change in people, the shift in energy. It's hard for me to keep up with people now. but the difference when people are really intentional about their work, and even for me, when you're in that space, it feels like you're on a high and you feel unstoppable. So I think, you know, it's amazing to be able to do that. So, you know, although I did the practitioner course, I realized for me it was more about exploring myself as a leader and how I applied the framework, you know. And Mel's talked about the mindset, but the approach is around sort of forming new habits to help shift that mindset and behavioural change, and using the power of one to create small everyday shifts. And then there's this concept of keystone habits as well, those habits that can have that ripple effect because they're so powerful for change. Yeah, and at the time, you know, we were talking a lot, we still talk a lot at Dorset Council about growth mindset, role modelling, and we have invested in a kind of coaching approach. But what does that role modelling actually look like if you're trying to be a future leader? You know, and what the framework does is helps you practically apply these things so you can role model these future mindsets to other people. So just some examples of some of the things that I've been working on in my own leadership practice is around forming new habits, particularly around data mindfulness, because that was an area that I needed to work on. Mel even came to one of our digital networks and did a whole bit on data mindfulness. You can find that on YouTube, on Digital Dorset YouTube channel. But being more aware of data, making sure that we use it for decision making, and so that was something. The other area that I had to work on hard because of the timing of when I did the practitioner course was around my well-being. I'd got into lots of really bad habits through the pandemic, and although I tried to do things to change that and get out of that, I realized I was trying to reach too far to something that was impossible and I was never going to achieve. So I brought that back down and started with kind of small changes, which has led to some quite different longer term changes, which has been fantastic. And I'm now trying to apply that to our meeting culture, because we have a really unhealthy meeting culture off the back of the pandemic. Journaling for me is something that's one of those keystone habits that I have found really powerful to help me make sense and reflect, and also be more prepared for the day or the next day. So I think that's been really powerful for me as a leader. And the daily power up. So this is, again, that power of one. There's 4 types of power up. I'm not going to go into all of them today, but I'm going to talk about the human experience. And the reason I called out that one is my favourite though. But I think the human experience off the back of the pandemic, you know, I've been leading the team throughout. It was a difficult time, and so I think. And we're still in that hybrid world, you know, most of us haven't gone back into the office. So that human experience to keep people connected is so important. So, you know, that for me is a really big one. You know, this isn't big complicated stuff. It's simple small stuff that over time builds up, that snowball rolling down the hill effect, isn't it? But where it takes you is it's about awareness of you as a leader, what you're doing every day, so that you know, if you're aware, you can start to self-correct what you're doing. So I said to Mel yesterday, I recently saw a quote, and I love this quote because it was from, I think, Lao Tzu on self-mastery, and it says, knowing others is intelligence, knowing yourself is true wisdom, mastering others is strength, but mastering yourself is true power. And it really resonated with me, because that for me is what 4D is all about. It's how you can master yourself to affect change. So yes, so we've been applying it in a leadership context and a practitioner context, but Sarah, who couldn't be here today, really sadly, she has been experimenting, applying the framework to a change project. So Sarah has been leading on the planning and convergence and transformation work to create a new planning authority following LGR, local government reorganisation. So that's involved converging 6 previous councils and 1 county council into this new planning authority. And so she's been able to use that project. She talks of it as a bit of a playground to have a go and try to apply some of this. And one of the things that she's had a lot of success with is around experimental thinking in terms of how many right answers are there to a potential problem. So she had a really lovely example. Actually, what I will say is, at the start of this project, we had a visit from the planning advisory service who wanted to assess us, and they couldn't understand why we wanted to approach this as a digital piece of work. And we had to spend the day convincing them why going down a digital kind of mindset approach was the right thing. And they were like, no, just deal with the technology and converge the data. You're kind of wasting time. But we held firm. We held firm. And actually, we've seen really big results, and that's also down to Sarah's leadership in this space. So an example that Sarah has come up with was when the project was faced with a particular problem at one of the go lives. They wanted to be able to keep the website live and accessible to the public while taking down the system to enable the migration. They were having a conversation at a stand-up, and one of the team said, oh, but actually, how many of the right answers are there to this? So Sarah's work had paid off, sort of asking that question times before. But following some kind of brainstorming and ideation, they came up with more solutions. One of them was far better than the original suggestion, and is what they went ahead and used. So starting to kind of see that, different openness to different thinking and different ways of doing things.
And I think, one of the things about that as well, Sarah, is the differentiation between an agile mindset that, is very particular versus an experimental mindset, which is, is slightly different. And I think one of the things that Sarah continues to do, and certainly in your example did exceptionally well, was role model that experimental mindset, and it just rippled out, didn't it? It just started coming back at her tenfold.
Absolutely. And I think within the technology space, we talk a lot about now democratizing IT. It's a big agenda. As users, we have a lot of power in our hands with capabilities like Office 365, but we need to help people have the mindsets to be able to, and the skills to be able to exploit those. So yeah, it's very relevant to the work that we're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the other things as well that I think is fantastic is that you've recognized, and you continue to recognize and invest in the idea of as opposed to change management being from the outside, influencing and pushing people in a particular way of working and behavior. You've invested that time and allowing people the space to explore who they are inside themselves, and that's the mindset work. And whilst it might feel at the beginning, oh Jiminy Cricket, how long is it going to take for us to do this, actually you get to that tipping point and it just goes phew, doesn't it, in terms of it's the viral effect.
Yeah, definitely. And there's such an appetite in the organisation now. We've run it Learning at Work Week this year. We've run specific sessions around forming new habits and experimental thinking, and they've gone down really, really well. And we've set challenges as a result. But we've also Mel's been leading some lunch and learns for leaders. But we've opened them up more broadly, and people are loving them. We're getting really great feedback. They just see that it's so different and something that they want to aspire and get involved in. So it's fantastic. It's creating that momentum and that community of people wanting to get involved. Yeah. But it's all about everybody making those small changes every day that then over time sort of add up to a big difference. And I guess we see lots of information about kind of digital transformation failure, don't we? And that's in the space. But this really, focusing on the small stuff at the beginning helps make the bigger stuff easier then longer term. And digital transformation isn't a program of work anyway, is it? It's just the start of a journey. I get asked quite a lot.
Yeah.
So what would it look like? When digital Dorset's delivered, how will you know? And it's really hard to articulate, to say what that will look like, because the world continues to shift around us, but also the pace of technology changes. So you can sort of say how it might look and feel and some of the characteristics, but not the fully formed thing, if you like.
Mm. And I've noticed that there's a lot of there's an increasing narrative now, which I love, with with a lot of people at Digital Dorset, which is, we're not doing digital transformation, we are becoming a digitally transforming and evolving council. Ka-ching. That's a win for me. That's a big win moment.
Yeah, that's the language. And yeah, if you really truly want to, you see this phrase, don't you, embed digital into your DNA. That's what that is, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I guess the only other thing I would say to people is, when you work in change, and you might be leading on digital or something else, you're passionate about doing things differently, sometimes it can be quite lonely at the beginning, sometimes frustrating. And I think what the framework, I would say, find other like-minded people outside your organization. That's really, really important, because that will help. But B, the framework actually really helps give you that courage to think and act differently, and maintain your focus on where you're trying to get to.
Yeah, definitely. And also, because a lot of the time, that loneliness can feel like your frustration, isn't it? Because you see the vision, you see the potential, you see the possibility, but you've got a massive system around you that's got a legacy mindset, or oh, that's a bit too much for us, or we're unique, or we've all heard it, we need to start really small. But that's not small as in our concept of the power of one. It's small as in, let's go slow. The approach that we take, the power of one, is certainly not going slow at all, is it, Lisa?
No, not at all. No, and that legacy mindset, so we're still on our beginning of our journey with the framework. We've got 4,500 people roughly within the organisation, so there is still lots more for us to do to kind of scale this up across the organisation. But ultimately, for the digital team, it will be easier to work with people. We'll be able to drive forward the bigger stuff. We'll be able to leap into innovation opportunities as they present quicker. So yeah, I'm really excited about where we go next.
That's fantastic. And you also mentioned the lunch, learn and lead sessions that we've been doing. We've already had one season. We're doing it like a little bit of Netflix. We have seasons that have got kind of themes around them. But what's lovely again is, we had a session yesterday. There was representation from across the council, but also from the top all the way down. And that's just, you mentioned the word democratization of IT earlier on. I just feel as if, the concept of transformation is something that you are organically democratizing. Maybe just as an unforeseen positive circumstance of the work. I don't know, but it's definitely something that we can see and evidence.
Yeah, I mean, we're called the Transformation, Innovation and Digital Service now, but it's not us that will make that happen. It's everybody else. So yeah, everybody needs to be involved. So do you want to take the opportunity to take any questions, or is there anything else you wanted to cover about?
No, I just think that's brilliant. I would love to. I can see that Mark's already popped a question in there, so please, come off mute and ask a question, or pop it into the chat. So Mark's question, Lisa, is: do you think the people involved felt valued and invested in through this process, and is this important to achieving change? I mean, from my perspective, I'll answer the second bit, because obviously the experience of the first half of your question, Mark, must ethically come from Lisa. But is people feeling and being involved right from the get-go important to achieving change? Without a doubt. And and I think that's why we try and challenge and push and design our work, our experiences around this sense of cross-functional and non-hierarchical, and also beyond the boundaries of the system as well. Beyond the boundaries to work with health and social care or other public services, or indeed out into the community, which was touched on very briefly by Lisa in Penny Siddle's work as well. Lisa, what about the first part of Mark's question? That's a really interesting one.
So over the years, I've had the opportunity to have very good managers. I've had the opportunity to do lots of training and development. But I think what is different about this is you really get to know yourself, and you have the support of a mentor to really help you, and knowing that mentor, goes out of their way to spend time and have conversations and help you, is absolutely makes me feel valued, makes me feel really privileged actually to be able to have access to that. So yeah, for me personally, going through it, definitely feeling valued. And I know from people in the team that have gone through it, we actually somebody yesterday said how they appreciate that we have given them the freedom and the opportunity to be able to participate this, and how it's made a difference to them. So yeah. So Sarah, was that all right? Was that okay, Mark? Okay, should we go on to Sarah's question? Did you find a challenge with people not thinking big enough on the potential to wide-scale change? I think, to be honest with you, Sarah, we still do, as an organisation, to do that really big stuff, to get that systemic change and really think about, how we use all the parts to do things very differently. That is still absolutely a work in progress. But we're still, as I said earlier, we're still early days with this, and we're creeping it into the organisation. We're building it up, and we're getting momentum. I would really love to be able to spend more time with the sort of senior leaders in this space. If that, I think that would be really helpful. But no, I think Dorset Council, it's only 3 years old. It's got a fantastic chief executive, and when the new council was formed, it was like anything is possible. All the cards are up in the air, and you create the future. So there is from sort of directorate perspectives, there is big thinking, but it's how we sort of join that up as a whole.
I also think, Sarah, that there's a little bit in your question as well that relates to some of the role modelling that's been achieved at Dorset as well. So I'm just thinking about Sarah's work and how Sarah in the planning directorate was able to engage where the door was a little bit open in terms of leaders wanting to think, but also with some with some traditional mindset in there as well. But just where the door was open, and just where it's open, just nudge it open a little bit more and a little bit more. That has brought fantastic success, from that perspective. But Lisa, I was hearing Sarah saying to us the other day that that's rippled out now, because there's about 5 or 6 councils that are saying, gosh, what you are achieving is big thinking, is proper innovation in local authority in this area. Can you come and talk to us? So I think, Sarah, door open, it's what do you do with that door being open, I think is really important. And then from that point is once you've got that role modelling in, is just seeing that ripple effect come out.
Yeah, and when people see that, other people want to have a go, don't they, as well, in other in other directorates. So no, we absolutely, Sarah, like you, we're lucky, we have lots of open doors. And yeah, keep at it. If you've got some open doors, keep at it. It will happen.
Yeah. And it just seeing what Sarah's saying, you just need more people to believe. You're absolutely right. But there are some techniques, there are some things that you can do that can help people, because the only reason people don't believe is that they can't see themselves and they can't connect a sense of belonging to the vision that you might have, or to that ambition, or to that innovation. And that, that's the thing that we need to do. We need to be a lot better at that, in public sector, in central government, as well as local government, public services.
Yeah, one of the things that we've reflected on as change practitioners in going through the programme is we tend to sort of create programs of work, and they start and we go straight into delivery, and actually there is so much more time up front that you need to do around that awareness piece and that that alignment piece. And you can see from the sort of journey that we've been on, starting right back a few years ago, and the digital champions, the community champions, the networks, all those things have kind of helped get us to where we are now. And keep building on that.
There's just something else coming from. Yeah, absolutely, Vanessa. If you've got some stories that you can share, a little bit of evidence always gives people belief, doesn't it? And I think what's nice for everybody here today is there's some stories that can be shared from Dorset as well, and so Lisa, where can people find the Dorset stories? Are they shared online for your colleagues, for your peers?
So we've got Digital Dorset YouTube channel, and we've got Digital Dorset blog site. And so there are contained within that, you will see some examples. We haven't written, and I should write now, probably off the back of this, a bit more about our specific Leading 4D journey and where that's taken us to. So nice one, Mel. Nice prompt.
Yeah, excellent. And just it's great because Sarah's just come back to us as well in the chat, just looking at the chat again, just saying that mindsets are something that we're working on at the moment, which is brilliant. I'd love to know what you're doing in that space, and certainly happy to share, but I'm sure that Lisa will be able to share quite a lot of information and some stories with you there, maybe just to bolster you up a bit on that one.
And the user-centered design stuff has helped us as well, and that is absolutely linked to mindset. And interestingly, a story, somebody who we put through the Leading 4D, we then worked with their team around user-centered design, and that has led their team to achieve some 380,000 savings, and just doing things and thinking about things differently, but really customer focused. And so there is some real tangible evidence then of how things are changing as a result.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, what I will share with everybody is just we're working with one local authority at the moment, and we've just pointed out a little bit of a banana skin for them, so we don't want them to slip up on this banana skin around mindset. What they're trying to do is they're trying to adopt an agile mindset across the entire organisation. Now, to be agile in the way we think is absolutely fantastic, but they're really, really struggling because the word agile is sometimes counterintuitive and creating a paradox in certain areas. For example, their security and infrastructure area of IT, they operate in a waterfall way. It's a linear way that they need to operate, and that's right. So they're struggling with this concept of agile mindsets. The one thing that I would say to everybody is, if you're thinking about mindset work, try and position it as modern mindset, and see agile mindset as one dimension of that wider kind of modern mindset. And I think that will help you be a little bit more, more inclusive in your work.
Yeah, we've absolutely been through the first of all, it was digital and trying to tell everybody what digital mindset was, and then now we're talking about kind of data, but we've moved into that space. What are the mindsets we need for the future to help us we talk about becoming that 21st century council, and so what are those new modern mindsets that you need to get there? Absolutely.
We've gone over time, haven't we?
I think we've got 2 minutes left, but I think it's a good point to wrap up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, Mark, Penny Siddle's done some absolutely brilliant digital exclusion work, and a lot of that is on our Digital Dorset blog site. And Penny's always open for conversations. I'm happy to make connections for you if you wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely. And do some of the principles work and apply? Absolutely, Mark. Yeah, that's a great shout. Penny's got some great stories. And I actually think also, are there some videos of Penny available online as well? Just talking about this.
I think so. Yes, there are.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, Lisa, we didn't quite do the kind of like Smith and Jones that we wanted to do, but hopefully what we've done, and certainly I think you have in a wonderful way, in the lovely inclusive style that you always have, shared a little bit of snippets for how, you know, the focus of humanizing transformation really does help accelerate success, and that's what we want, right?
Definitely. It's been a pleasure. Cool. Thank you, everybody, for coming along this morning and taking time out for us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. And happy Friday.
Have a good weekend.
Excellent.